Okay, I'm Stephen Brown. I'm the UK campaign manager for the Live Below the Line campaign.
Cool. And this is the second year that it's been running. Mm-hmm. How did the idea come about?
So the idea came about in Australia. There was a guy who was working, I think, in the corporate sector, and he took the decision, like many people do after a few years, that he wanted to change careers and do something that was a little bit more, maybe, meaningful in his life and support other people. So he wanted to get more involved into poverty, but he recognised that he didn't really understand the issues in any kind of deep or meaningful way. So he came up with this plan that he was going to live below the poverty line for 3 months to see how it felt. And when he initially decided to do this, his name was Rich Fleming, but when he decided to do this, he didn't have the intention of raising any money or letting people. He just did it for his own kind of understanding. But inevitably people picked up on it and the media started running stories on him. It really snowballed and people were donating to him and giving him money. And then he moved on from that and realised that this was a really unique challenge that people were really engaging with. And it fitted in with his and his friends, the people that then went on and set up Global Poverty Project. Their drive to really give people a much deeper understanding and educational understanding about what poverty is. So they started running Live Below the Line in Australia, and I think that was 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
So it's kind of 4th year Australia, 1st year US, 2nd year UK, 1st year New Zealand.
Okay. And so how many people do you reckon you're going to get involved this year? Got any guesses? Or?
Well, it's really tough because 2nd year campaigns are very difficult to predict, because 1st year campaigns, especially with a unique challenge like this, lots of people get excited about it. Is it going to work in the 2nd year? The same people are going to do it again? There's lots of variants. Last year we had 9 charities that came on board. This year we've got 23.
Right. And
everybody who signed up last year signed up this year. So it was a really good platform, really good starting point for us. The total number of participants in year 1 was 1,240.
Okay.
We already have 1,750-ish, with 2 weeks to go, and most participants do sign up in the last 2 weeks. So we're already 500 people up on last year, which is great. So I'm hoping that if the trend of the last 3 days continues up until the week, we'll probably have about 2,800, 3,000 people taking part right across the country, which actually is a huge number of people, given that the ask isn't, run 5k. It's a concept that you don't really understand straight away when you first hear about it. There's lots of questions that you ask. Where do I go shopping? Is it possible? How is this going to affect my life? How am I going to make it through those dinner lunches, working lunches, all those kinds of questions? So to get 3,000 people doing that, I think will be a really awesome achievement for the campaign. And that's just in the UK. We already have 8,000 people signed up worldwide right now. So I'm hoping that's going to be closer to 15 by the time we finish.
Okay. Have you done it yourself?
I did do it last year. I made it slightly easier on myself last year by roping in my housemate to do it with me. So we had £10 between 2 of us. And that enabled us to have a few more luxuries isn't really the right word, but I guess compared to some of my friends who were doing it on their own, we were able to get a couple of potatoes. So we had a couple of jacket potatoes. But what was interesting was that there were times where I was on a train at work and was going from London to Sheffield or something, and I'd finished my bottle of water that I'd brought with me, that I'd got from the tap, and I was on the train, and I suddenly realised that I now didn't have any water for the next 2.5 hours of the train journey, and I couldn't just go to the shop and buy any, and I certainly wasn't going to get the water out of the toilet down a Virgin train. So it was moments like that affected me and what I was doing daily that made me sparks that kind of thought in your brain about what this must be like on a daily basis for people who just genuinely don't have any access to clean water for most of the day, or those people that, when they're cooking in the evening and they've made something and one of the children comes over and knocks the pot over and or the food gets burnt. There is no alternative. You can't just make more food because it isn't available, so people starve. And the fact that was just for 2.5 hours for me, and it was the difference between going 2.5 hours without water. But for someone else, the restriction would be, do I go and pay for food that's going to feed my family this week, or do I take my sick daughter to the hospital?
Yeah.
And it's very, Live Below the Line challenge is it's almost like you're just bringing to life some of the challenges, but by no means can they be equated anywhere near what actually people are going through, who are living below the poverty line.
Yeah. And in terms of sort of practical actions, what sort of thing are you working on as a wider organisation beyond Live Below the Line?
So the Global Poverty Project runs Live Below the Line, but it's a separate education and campaigning organisation, really, because Live Below the Line is run for other organisations as well as itself to help raise money for anti-poverty initiatives. GPP runs 2 or 3 campaigns a year, and we have a really brilliant, dedicated activist group of people across the country, and we've just launched recently this year with Bill Gates our ambassador programme. So we've got 150 ambassadors who are going out there giving our 1.4 billion reasons presentation, which is an educational presentation about extreme poverty out in their communities. So that's one of the things that we're running. But the 2 big campaigns this year really are Protect 0.7. So 0.7 is the amount of money that the government gives to international aid, and that increasingly in a recession comes under threat. We understand why people think, first thought is charity starts at home or whatever. But 0.7 is such a small amount of money in GDP and has such a disproportionately massive effect on those people who need it. It isn't about the amount; it's about spending it in the right areas. And if you look at, say, in my lifetime, when I was born nearly 29 years ago, the number of people that were living in extreme poverty was around 40%. Now it's around 22%. Now that isn't solely because of aid, but aid has had a huge impact on the reduction of that number. And so 0.7, protecting 0.7, which actually is the benchmark that the UN sets for every country, is really important for us. And something we're fighting to keep. We're hoping that the government is going to announce in the Queen's speech in a couple of weeks that they're going to put it into legislation. We're not sure whether that's going to happen, but we're working hard to try and lobby for that to happen. And then the second campaign, which we haven't launched yet, but we're in talks about moving forward with, is an ethical fashion campaign. We're really clear that we believe that the fashion industry needs to be a lot more transparent about where it gets its clothing from and the amount that workers are paid and the conditions. And the discussions at the moment are around whether you can legislate transparency, which is quite a difficult thing to do, and whether you can legislate for ensuring that companies in this country only use companies abroad making their clothes who pay a living wage in that country. And so it's something that people have tried to do in the past but not really got very far on. But we've got some really good opportunities, I think, over the next year to make a big impact on the industry. And I think actually, it's one of those things where I think there's 2 problems with it. One is that people still shop at Primark or they still shop at Topshop, even if they're ethically minded people, because genuinely don't know what the difference is. They don't know the difference, and they probably have an idea that they probably think that all shops are pretty unethical, but they don't know the difference between each one because there's no transparency and there's no minimum standard. So it's important to get those things corrected, firstly. But I also think that making sure that we're not using slaves to make our clothing, essentially, which is what we're talking about, is going to happen at some point anyway. And we're just trying to push that along a little bit.
Well, I'll keep an eye on that one. That's an interest of mine as well. So, cool. Thank you very much for those things. Just one final thing: if people are thinking about signing up for Live Below the Line, what one thing would you say to them to encourage them to do it?
Okay, so I set up an organisation in beginning of last year called Positive Women, and because I have a personal connection to a country called Swaziland, which has the highest HIV rate, the lowest life expectancy of any country in the world, but no one seems to give a damn about. So I set up this organisation called Positive Women, where we support HIV positive women get children and orphans into primary school. We get some income generating projects. Now, we didn't really have we didn't have a database, we didn't have a newsletter, we didn't have anything. We needed to find ways to make money. Live Below the Line, from us as a small organisation, made £18,000, and that was in our first 3 months of existence last year. That meant that when the organisation that we were supporting in Swaziland had the global funding withdrawn for their rent because of the corrupted government there, that they were about to close down, but we were able to keep them going because of this money that we brought in. We pretty much gave them a lifeline, and they continued to be able to take kids into school. It made a massive difference to those people in Swaziland, the organisation, and it's the reason why I wanted to take on this campaign as the manager this year. It really does raise significant funds for organisations. The diversity of organisations, everything from big organisation like UNICEF right through to the smallest organisation exists in the family of Live Below the Line charities this year. And so from a fundraising perspective, it has a massive impact, and to give you two rather than one, if that's okay. As an individual, it absolutely gave me a much deeper and better understanding about, even though I'd been to Malawi and Swaziland and Liberia and Zimbabwe and seen poverty, it really, I was just looking at it from, behind my glasses going, okay, I can kind of see that these people are poor, and I can see that they're upset, but I don't see the choices that they have to make. I'm not able to internalise those thoughts in the way that they have to all of the time. And this really helped me understand that much better. And it certainly has prompted a lot of my friends who either did the challenge or saw me do the challenge give more money, give more time and more effort and commitment to ending extreme poverty.
Great. Cool. Thank you very much.
No problem.